The Green Bay Packers, as much as it pains me to say it, are one of the best organizations in the entire National Football League. There's so many things to respect and admire in terms of the way they run their ship and the way they handle their day-to-day football operations. And it's no surprise that consistently, year in and year out, this seems to be a team that finds its way into the mix, finds itself in the playoffs, and finds itself as in a way to be taken seriously as a championship contender year in and year out. 2014 was most certainly no different. This is a team that went 12-4. This was a team that found its way to the NFC Championship game and then lost a heartbreaker to the Seattle Seahawks, a game for a lot of intents and purposes they probably had no business losing, yet they managed to snag defeat from the jaws of victory. So this is a team that was really, really close. And if they would have gotten to the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots, a team they had beaten already in the regular season, who knows what could have happened? This could have been another Super Bowl championship, another Lombardi trophy for Titletown, Green Bay, Wisconsin, if you will. I mean, this is a team that is really, really close. And this is a team that consistently seems to stay in the mix. And there's two primary reasons for that. Number one, they have Aaron Rodgers. It makes all the difference in the world. He is the best quarterback in the National Football League, period. And number two, it's their ability to build their team through the draft. It does so many things for you. It allows you to constantly restock yourself and your talent levels and your depth at all different areas of the roster in the organization in a period of free agency and high turnover. It allows you to save money because you can get these guys in-house for several years cheaper than you would have to if you needed to go spend big in the free agent market. When you're able to find all these productive players in the draft, you're able to keep them in the system for years. So you're not trying to bring in an overpriced aging veteran to learn your system on the wrong side of 30. You're bringing in a 22, 23-year-old kid that can play, that fits your system that you're coaching up. And a year or two after you coach them up, you still got a couple of productive years out of them before you even have to entertain the thought of potentially paying him. That's the biggest reason the Green Bay Packers are successful is the NFL draft. Now, they're not perfect in the NFL draft, but they do a really, really good job. And they've done a really good job for, bits and stretches over the past 5 years. Like you look back at 2010, they got Brian Bulaga. Here's a guy that they were able to re-sign, so they're bringing him back in the fold. When he's healthy, he's an effective right tackle for them. That's a problem is when he's healthy, but here's a guy, again, that you draft him, he becomes a certain level of player, and then because you don't go hog wild in free agency, because you consistently are able to find pieces in the draft, you're able to sit there and re-sign guys like Bulaga, re-sign guys like your second-round pick from 2011, Randall Cobb. This guy has been a huge hit, a huge success for the Green Bay Packers. A guy coming out of Kentucky, you weren't really sure what they were going to be able to do with him, but man, they found a way to utilize him, and he's become a star. And again, a guy that they were able to re-sign. You look at 2013 and what was viewed as a weaker draft class, and understandably so, but they still got big production out of guys like Eddie Lacy, their second-round pick, the running back out of Alabama, David Bakhtiari, their fourth-round pick, the offensive tackle from Colorado. I mean, you're talking about guys that were productive that came out of what was perceived to be a weaker draft. And then you look again at 2014. You look at their second-round pick, Devontae Adams. Here's a guy that you anticipate his role is only going to grow in the Packers offense as the years go by. He'll be more of a James Jones type. And you look at their late-round pick, the center, the rookie from Ohio State, Corey Linsley. Them letting Evan Dietrich Smith go, there were a lot of questions about what they were going to do at the center position. But once Linsley got the opportunity, he got better, and he became a big asset to that offensive line in the interior as the season went along. So it's the Packers' ability, it seems like in most drafts anyways, to find one or two really productive players, and in several cases find not only productive players, but big-time impact players and stars. But they haven't been perfect. I mean, you look at 2011, outside of Randall Cobb, that draft wasn't exactly a smashing success. You look at 2012, that draft really hasn't been a smashing success at all. That's been actually one of the worst drafts the Packers have had in quite some time. As I quit back in 2012, the Bears and Packers made picks for each other. The Bears should have taken Nick Perry if they were going to take a defensive lineman, not named Chandler Jones. And the Green Bay Packers, if they wanted a 3-4 outside linebacker, should have taken Shea McClellan if he would have been there instead of Nick Perry. The fit for McClellan in Chicago wasn't good. The fit for Perry in Green Bay wasn't good. And He hasn't been good, and Perry hasn't been that guy. And like I said, in general, they just didn't get much out of that 2012 draft class. There's still questions, I think, about their last 2 first-round picks, although I think Clinton Dix is more close to the level of being classified as a non-bust already, because he had his moments, he had his flashes as a rookie. There's no question about that, but he also made his big-time mistakes. Playoff game. But then you look at Datone Jones, their first-round pick from UCLA in 2013. He really hasn't done much. He really hasn't set any world on fire whatsoever. And there are major questions about whether he's going to end up being a bust. But again, when we talk about the Packers in general, they've been successful in the draft. Even when you look back over the years and their ability to get guys as undrafted free agents, guys like Sam Shields is a perfect example. I mean, this is an undrafted free agent that plays at a high level as a corner. So this offseason, I like what the Packers did in the sense that they didn't lose anybody of any huge, tremendous significance. No, I wouldn't necessarily say anybody of huge, tremendous significance, maybe outside of Tramon Williams, but again, you're talking about a corner that was on the wrong side of 30. You let A.J. Hawk go, but, as much as everybody's been talking about inside linebacker being a huge need for that team, well, A.J. Hawk was an inside linebacker. You lost Devon House, but, looking at what the Jaguars paid him, for Christ's sake, you really didn't lose out. It's a good thing that he was gone. But the Packers were able to keep the guys that they wanted to keep and needed to keep. They were able to bring back Randall Cobb. They were able to bring back Brian Bulaga. They were able to keep John Kuhn in the fold. So don't worry, Packers fans. Your third and goal, your 4th and 1 fullback dive plays are going to be in full effect again in 2015. They're able to bring back B.J. Raji in another 1-year kind of prove-it deal. They were able to keep LaTroy Guion on another short-term deal. You look at it and you look at the fact that the Packers have, I believe last year it was like 20 of their 22 starters between offense and defense were originally drafted by the team or started off their NFL careers with the team as undrafted free agents. That's a pretty good track record, and that's a big indication of why the Packers are successful consistently. So now we get to another NFL draft, and what are the Packers going to do? How are they going to help ensure their sustained continued success, and what can they do maybe to get over that hump and maybe get back to the Super Bowl this upcoming season? Well, let's look at some of their biggest draft needs. I think a lot of their draft needs, their most pressing draft needs, all come on the defensive side of the ball, and I think most people would probably agree with that. The biggest need, beyond question, is inside linebacker, and I most certainly would agree with that, although I think corner is a really big need as well. I think another thing that they could use is a young, athletic edge rusher. Because, yes, you've got Julius Peppers, and yes, you've got Clay Matthews, but you really don't have a whole lot after that. Peppers is only going to play a certain amount of time, and if you do get in a situation where you do have to play Clay Matthews some on the inside in certain situations, you need 1, if not 2, young edge rushers on the outside. Maybe a 4th-round pick last year like Carl Bradford could be that guy, but at the meantime, it wouldn't hurt for them to explore the possibility of adding some depth at that position. Then you look at the offensive side of the ball. I think a lot of Packers fans would probably say the biggest thing they need addressed on the offensive side of the ball might be a starting tight end. This is a team that does miss the production that Jermichael Finley brought at tight end. And yes, you had some moments out of Richard Rodgers, but did you get enough to really feel confident in him being a productive starter long term? They could also use a scat back type of guy, the type of guy that they maybe envisioned Jonathan Franklin being before he had to retire due to the neck injury. They've got a big bruiser like Eddie Lacy. You've got another very similar type of back in James Starks. But one thing they could use is more of a lightning type of guy, a guy that you can line up all over the place, a guy that could be a 3rd down type of back, a real different type of change of pace type of back, because those type of guys are important. In terms of the philosophy for the Green Bay Packers in this year's NFL draft, they could go a lot of different ways. I would expect more likely than not that their first pick will be on the defensive side of the ball, and frankly, that needs to be on the defensive side of the ball. And frankly, the talent and value on the board measures up best for the Packers taking a defensive player, whether it be an inside linebacker or corner at pick number 30. I've seen lots of different talk about who they could potentially take. But in terms of corners, there are going to be several guys that could potentially fit that mold right there. Maybe somebody like an Eric Rowe from Utah would be one example. A guy like Byron Jones from UConn if he's there, or Kevin Johnson from Wake Forest if he happens to be there. In terms of an inside linebacker, again, I point to a Stephon Anthony from Clemson and Eric Kendricks from UCLA. Those are guys that make a lot of sense right there at pick number 30 as well. This could be a team that moves back a little bit. Some Packer fans might be pining for somebody like a Max Williams, a tight end out of Minnesota. I don't know that you necessarily need to take him at number 30, but maybe you do. Maybe you're afraid that the Saints would take him at number 31. That could be a concern. But this is, again, a situation where maybe the Packers can even afford to peel back get some additional draft pick currency, and move out of round number 1. That's a possibility as well. At the end of the day, the Packers will probably do what they've done in recent drafts more likely than not. They'll find themselves 2 to 3 long-term contributors and guys that can even help contribute right away, and this will be a team that's right back in the mix of things again in the NFC in 2015.